Let me paint you a little picture about my favourite wrestling. I'm doing it.
Right, okay.
I'm just doing it in a different way.
My favourite wrestling moment, Adam Cleary. Because he's there, look.
My Uncle Peter came downstairs, turkey baster in hand, oil in the other, and just said, let's make a movie.
Oh, he's got the shagging jacket on. He knows he's on camera.
Is the jacket free? I'll go like...
Do what you want, mate?
Where do you? I don't even know what you do with this.
My favourite wrestling moment is something that I think a lot of people in my age group would point to as a key moment in their fandom. And that was Steve Austin returning to save the WWF, the old Stone Cold, from ECW and WCW long before the invasion angle went completely tits up with a whole load of nonsense that's best left forgotten about. It was July 2001, and the 13-year-old Andy Murray had completely bought into the idea that somehow the WWF was going to go out of business. They were helpless against this alliance, and they'd done such a good job building it up. And of course, a few months earlier, Austin had turned heel. It was a desperate situation.
My favourite wrestling moment has to be CM Punk's pipe bomb promo from 2011. I remember exactly where I was when I was watching it. I remember the reaction it got, good and bad. And yeah, just like, I think it changed wrestling. It got a lot of people that weren't necessarily invested in wrestling at the time back into it. It completely revitalised it.
Favourite wrestling moment? Titus Wellesley!
Let me paint you a little picture about my favourite wrestling moment. It's January in the year 2000. Raw's just finished and Mankind was left on the floor, bloodied and beaten by Triple H. SmackDown rolls around and Triple H brings out this fake Mankind and he's running him down, saying he's just a piece of trash. When the car smash happens and the chord riff kicks in and Mankind comes out there, and he talks about a few things that Mankind is. And he is a hell of an author, he's an entertaining guy, but he's not ready to fight Triple H in a street fight in Madison Square Garden at the Royal Rumble. But he knows a guy who is.
My favourite wrestling memory is watching live and in person Daniel Bryan's title win at WrestleMania 30. Being a short geek, I've got kind of an affinity for Bryan as well as being totally wowed by him, so it was a really euphoric way to cross one off the bucket list. My favourite wrestling moment is when Stone Cold Steve Austin absolutely decked Bret the Hitman Hart. I was a Bret the Hitman Hart fan all my life. Stone Cold Steve Austin called him out on an episode of Raw. They'd already turned him babyface and Bret Hart heel, but I was still wanting to cling on to the Bret Hart being my guy. He was my guy since I was a kid, and then all of a sudden Austin struck. He was brutal, he put him in an ambulance, he turned up in the ambulance, he tried to hijack it, he decked him again and again and again, and then he said ass to Gorilla Monsoon. What's not to love about that?
Other than hitting the WCPW champion with a Stone Cold Stunner, my favourite wrestling moment is, and it took me ages to think about this because there's like so many, you go back to like your glory days and whatever, but the one thing that always jumps out at me is when Chris Jericho won the WWF Championship on a random episode of Raw in like this weird 10-minute match, because when you watch it back, the crowd is just so into it. There's a bit where Jericho blocks getting his head bashed off the announce table and does it to Triple H, and people pop like the Rollins cash in.
Anytime Sting came down from the rafters, really, yeah. Exciting.
In terms of my favourite WWE moment, I mean, there's absolutely loads that we could go through. I mean, there's too many, and I'll undoubtedly have missed some, and you know, there's probably more iconic ones I could go for, but I'm going the other way because I like nonsense when it comes to wrestling. And we could talk about, you know, Austin versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13, or I'm sure Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30 will be on here as well. Chris Jericho winning the title on Raw. But I want to talk about what maybe nobody else will talk about and remind you that at the end of the day, wrestling is just meant to be fun and really is some of the most stupid entertainment in the world. But that's why it's so good. And that's when Eugene was the general manager of Raw, and he decided that the way he was going to get a #1 contender for the IC Championship was to do a game of musical chairs.
My favourite wrestling moment ever has to be when Seth Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania 31. I think I just started watching wrestling again, like about Survivor Series time. So when he cashed in and obviously turned up, the heist of the century, come running down from the massive ramp, the fans losing their minds, I was losing my mind at home. The match had been pretty good anyway, but then for that to be the finish and Rollins to get the belt, the guy who I kind of I'd started watching it again and I was excited to watch him and he got the title. It's just class. Couldn't top it. Could not top it.
Professional wrestling, however, SummerSlam 2000 TLC 1. Even though it was 17.5 minutes or like nearly 20 minutes, as a kid, I only remember it being 1, and that 1 minute being, whoa.
Furthermore, my improbable journey to New Orleans was almost as improbable as Daniel Bryan's because I got married in September 2013. Now, within 2 weeks, my wife was nagging us to have a baby even though we'd previously settled on 2 years. So I said, look, we can start trying if, and only if, I get to go to WrestleMania next year. So my wife doesn't like spending time with me alone, but at least I was there when the streak ended.
Just for a while it felt great to be a wrestling fan again. Like, it was exciting, it was fresh, it was new, it was like Attitude Era, like counterculture, like completely brand new. It was like watching it with brand new eyes, and it's just really exciting. It's really fun, and that's why it's my favourite.
Then we get to this episode of Raw and the scene is legendary. Kane, The Undertaker, they're all getting beaten up by these ECW Alliance, WCW scrubs in the middle of the ring. And they've done such a good job of building the anticipation for Steve Austin's arrival that when he pulls up backstage and he starts nailing all these nerds, your Sean Stasiaks, your Shane Helms with a pool cue, and they build it up and up, minutes pass, and we get back in the arena and the glass shatters.
And he tears off his shirt, and his name is Cactus Jack, and he's gonna kick your teeth all over the city of Chicago.
I think I was sort of familiar with what a dusty finish was at the time, and like not so many words. So when the referee gets knocked down, oh, here we go. Then there's a bit where Steph throws the belt into the ring, and the noise the crowd makes when Jericho just kicks Triple H in the chest and hits him with the belt. Like, they can't believe what they're watching.
But the real reason I remember it so fondly is mainly, and I'm sure everybody will agree with this, is because of Ric Flair. Ric Flair proves here, I mean, that he is, it sounds weird, right? Because obviously in the ring and on the microphone, he's one of the best ever. I don't think anybody could debate that. But even the way he applied himself to this stupid skit, and it's absolutely ridiculous, makes it something that I always think about, and something I show people when, you know, they're trying to get into wrestling. I'm like, look how varied and dumb it could be.
Oh, that's a lot of debris. That's a lot of men going through tables. No wonder Matt Hardy looks like he's a broom handle fused together after matches like that. Unbelievable. Not great technical wrestling, but if you were to say, hey, fall off that onto that, well, I can't say you can find any better. Maybe Jimmy Havoc onto some Tic Tacs. Tic Tacs? Tacs. Nails. He's nails.
Triple H sells it like he's just seen a ghost. He goes absolutely white. He runs off. Mankind gets him. Cactus Jack gets him. Starts beating him down. Triple H gets away with Stephanie, runs up the aisle, turns around, white as a sheet, like he's just seen the most terrifying thing in the world.
And then when the whole Hebner thing comes out and he shoves him and he wins, like, people just lose their minds. And I think I ran around the house screaming for, like, it was, I don't know if like people watching from the UK, we used to get Raw on Sky Sports at like 10 o'clock at night, and I was like 11 or 12, so you had to ask to stay up to watch it. And it was always under the condition, so long as you're quiet, so long as you don't disturb the rest of the house, you can watch the wrestling. I disturbed the rest of the house to the point where I wasn't allowed to watch SmackDown the next day. But like, they reversed the decision, it was fine. But just in that moment, like those 10 minutes of like being so invested in the match, like pure like excitement, expectation, and then actually getting the result you want out of nowhere, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. They've never made me feel like they did in that moment since.
It's the purest, it's the most visceral wrestling moment that I can ever remember connecting with. And it's something that could never happen today as well, because there'd be calls of burials all over the place. And it was just bloody magic. This guy comes down and single-handedly beats up an entire roster on his own. And of course the invasion angle did go a little bit balls up by the end, but even watching that moment now, going back, I still pop like a wee pube.
Just two guys who absolutely hate each other so much that Mankind has to unveil this whole new character just to beat him, but he brings it back round to focus on the championship as well. So it's two things, the main event of the pay-per-view, blood feud, and gets the title match in there. And it's absolutely bloody brilliant, and it just makes me really excited just even thinking about it.
So it must be 15, 16 years old, but I still remember it today. and when everybody at WhatCulture was going through their favourite moments. I had loads, but when that popped in my head, I was like, I gotta go for that one because it just makes me smile, and I like to smile.
It was JBL the whole time he was running down, was just shouting brilliant. This is brilliant! This is brilliant! Actually, it was Michael Cole Heist essentially, I think. Maybe, anyway.
There you go.